Call the park board meeting to order, and we'll start with roll call.
Miller,
Here.
Rushmeyer,
Here.
Schaefer, Yeager,
Yes.
and Shape.
Here. Next, we have the Pledge of Allegiance.
to the flag, to the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next we have the approval of the agenda.
So moved, Yeager.
Second, Miller.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same sign. The agenda is approved. Next, after that, is the consent calendar. Notice to the public, all matters listed are considered routine by the board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to the time the board votes on the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I will second the motion to approve the consent calendar. Miller.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent calendar is approved. Next, we have Eleanor from Age Friendly Brainerd.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me here today. I'm not sure what day it was in the paper, but at the last city council meeting, they voted to pursue an age-friendly Brainerd opportunity. And I'll be helping with that. And my name is Eleanor Burkett, and I work for the Central Minnesota Council on Aging. Do you want my address? Yes. Okay, thank you. I've not presented at a board meeting like this. So my address is 757 Holton Avenue, Brainerd, and so it's over on Holton and Oak Street area. Anyway, thank you for having me here today, and I'm going to go briefly through what this will be and what this could mean to the parks if that's the direction that people want to go. So age-friendly is, this is what briefly what I talked about at the example, and so why we looked at Brainerd, a little bit over an overview of the age-friendly communities, an example of that, and the process. And then I just asked people to ponder what makes Brainerd a great place to live. And I bet we could spend an hour or two talking just about that, but we won't. So just keep that in the back of your mind while we go through this. So just a couple of demographics, and I won't go over everything, but it is estimated that basically the aging population is growing. And in Minnesota, for example, right now, there's more people over the age of 65 than there is under the age of 18. So if you think about that, and you think about that in a timeline of time passing, it's 65 in 10 years, it'll be people over 75, over 85, et cetera. And granted, some of those people will be dying, as we all do. Still it's going to be a large chunk of the population and a large percentage. So in Crow Wing County, that we have a lot of people living alone, and which is a little bit lower than the state, but it is still pretty high. 22% of the population over the age of 60 do live alone. And then there's about family caregivers, and that's just people who are taking care of people who need care. And the reason why that's important, and it's even important for this committee, is because there's a real dependency upon like neighbors, friends, family caring for people, as there's limited spaces in some of the facilities, and also some of the facilities are kind of out of range and expensive for people. So it's not always easy for them to get the services they need, so they're going to be dependent upon people helping them. And just, again, I think it's interesting to know that we're a little bit higher than the state as far as people living people above age 60 living below the poverty threshold. And that plays into creating an age-friendly community. And what we do is we look at, the aging population, we look at real estate and infrastructure, and then the progress and preferences of our community. We've done a lot so far in our community to become age-friendly, and Brainerd's done a lot of neat things. I don't know if you were around back then, but I was on the Walkable Bikeable City Committee back in the day. And then there's other things that the city's doing that are just great to be helping to create age-friendly. So we're not like trying to reinvent the wheel. We're trying to find out where the gaps are and then add to what Brainerd's already doing. So part of it is about engaging older adults and using research and the resources that are provided, and there's different resources. AARP Minnesota has a bunch of resources, and then there's other resources that we can use as well to be looking at what we want to do. And currently, so in the past year, they've just been awarded, I think there were 91 in the state, age-friendly grants that were awarded. So in 2019, Governor Walz declared or wanted to make Minnesota an age-friendly state, and then, of course, COVID happened, so they didn't use any of the money that was set aside for that. So now that we're kind of going beyond COVID, they have opened up some grants. And there are a variety of different kinds of things, but they might be, as we learn more about what the grants are throughout the state, it might be of interest to you to kind of see what the types of things that they're doing. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. So as of this date, there were 13 cities in the state that have become age-friendly, and a couple of counties, Hennepin, Lake, and Olmsted, have declared to be age-friendly. I'm going to focus on two. Oops, I guess that was back on the other slide. Oops. Basically, Alexandria and Princeton have both become age-friendly, and they've done some things in their infrastructure, like making things more accessible for citizens. And it just really depends upon each community what's a priority there. If it's parks and open spaces, or it could be other things as well. So I'm kind of going through this a little bit fast. So again, this is just that Governor Walz wanted to have Minnesota be age-friendly because it makes economic sense, it makes social sense, it makes all kinds of sense to do that. And this is just an opportunity for Brainerd. Actually, the city of Brainerd will need to apply to, if they want to, they don't have to, but to AARP to let them know they're going through this process eventually, and then we'll start the process. But first, I'm going to talk a little bit about the 8 domains of livability, and I gave you a handout on that, and so it's about outdoor spaces and buildings. And on the back of this, there was a few examples of, green spaces, accessible buildings, 0 steps, and things that people can be enjoyed of all ages. So even though I'm coming from the area of aging population, what's good for the aging population is good for moms with strollers or baby, little kids. It can be accessible for everybody. Other areas we'll look at is transportation, housing, social participation, so people have accessibility and are able to participate. Right now, there's a lot of talk about how, and COVID really exemplified how much people are suffering from isolation and loneliness and anxiety. And that's not just seniors, it's people of all ages. But our focus in this is probably a little bit more on seniors, but having places where people can meet and talk and enjoy each other. And again, that more, respect and social inclusion and participation by the community. It can also perhaps, help with employment opportunities. And then there's, it's good for the health. It's good for, there's a lot of money, that's just been released for broadband. And that's an issue in a lot of our counties. So that's some of the stuff that could be looked at in this type of thing, is getting those things happening. So the age-friendly process is kind of first to create a plan, and that might be doing an assessment to look at what we're doing well and what's already being done, and, not necessarily that we need to pay attention to, but it's already being paid attention to. And then also to look at where the gaps are, or where there could be things that are places to improve. and then to do implementation. And this is where possibly there might be some grants available. There's a number of different grants that I actually get to help work with, and one of them is the Age-Friendly Minnesota grants. And, can work with those, and then there's other grants out there too that can help. There's, community impact grants and different grants that could help foster whatever it is we decide we want to do. So this isn't like the Eleanor Burkett plan. This is like our community plan. And then of course we evaluate. So it's about a 5-year process, but we can go at any rate we want and and kind of work through this. So there you go. There's the 5-year plan. And then you kind of see if you want to continue doing this and looking at it, or have we done everything we've wanted to accomplish? So people have had impact by changing public policy, people who've been involved in this communities. The private sector action and investment has been really good, that there's been funds coming from them as well. And then other successes have been huge across the Age-Friendly Minnesota. So this is a lot of words on this slide, but this is just to show that there's a lot of different people involved, such as elected officials, foundations. Like here we'd have the Senior Center, we have Crowing Energized, we have just volunteers, all kinds of different people that could be involved in like the business sector where it doesn't make sense to be involved. So, we think about the gaps, but we always want to keep an idea and really think about what strengths we bring to age-friendly. And that's my basic information, but we also have a representative from the state who's willing to work with us. And I kind of went through that fast because I really just wanted to point out that, there are some ideas like I've seen. Communities can get like benches on the walking trails if there's needed to be more, so people could have a place to rest. I know you've done a lot with wayfinding signs in the community. I like how the parks are really a showpiece, and of Brainerd, we have a really nice showpiece of some of the nice parks we have. And then I know I work with Crowing Energize on some of the projects they're doing, and one of the things I think is really cool, it's just coming out, is a whole leaflet on activities, physical activities to do. And that group included like parks and different things that are in the whole county that people can do. So those are the kinds of things that, we want to like help raise up. And again, it's depending on what we find out from the survey, what people want to work on and what needs to be worked on. If everything's kind of taken care of in one area, then we move on to the next. If housing or transportation or parks, open spaces, whichever of those things rise to the top, then those are the things we're going to focus on, and we're also going to make sure we have the capacity for. It's not trying to create more work for people. It's trying to help to make sure that everything's kind of tied together. Because if you think about it, not that little kids and teenagers and other age groups don't count, but there's this big group of people out there that are aging, and me included, and like I'm getting up there, but it's about making sure that there's spaces for them. So like, for example, I think of downtown Brainerd, having, developing that. And I've talked to James Krevick about that, and about, how people could walk around and go to the shops and have, maybe, there's different opportunities downtown, and close to the Y, we'd be working with the Y possibly as well. So it's just about trying to make our community more of a reason to move here, and more of a reason for people to want to age here. And people do want to age in rural areas. I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of people are moving up here from the cities or from other parts of the country, and sometimes they might move out to the lake or someplace, and then, which is great when they're healthy and fit, but then they get to a point where they need more help. And that's when I've talked to people and they've moved to Brainerd, for example, because they want to be closer to resources. There's not a lot of, resources when you get in some of the more remote areas. So coming to Brainerd, be in Brainerd, and not that everybody has to live in Brainerd, but to have this a place where people, it's appealing to people as they're aging. And again, like I said, it's for people of all ages, intergenerational things, and to take those things in account. So that's kind of my little talk about this, and I just feel it's a real opportunity for Brainerd, and we'll kind of see where it goes. There's no at this point no idea of where it might lead, but we'll see where it goes. So, is there any questions?
Not for me.
Okay.
Nope.
Anything from anywhere else? Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. And Jesse has my contact information, and we'll be in touch. So, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right. Next, we have skateboarding prohibition signage for Lyman P. White. Jesse.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. So we talked a little bit on our previous meeting about the instances of skateboarding, some of the scooters that have been going through the new park even during construction. So what we ended up doing is we ordered several small, relatively 1 foot by 1 foot signs, kind of showing that prohibition of kind of the skateboards, rollerblading, scooters, stuff of that nature. Really, we're looking for some guidance on where to place them at the new park. Generally, I thought kind of the main access points to the park from the trails, the north end that goes up to the overlook, kind of that central entrance, and then kind of the south end that goes down towards the kayak launch. Again, they're pretty small, so don't want to post, and hopefully they're not very obtrusive. So that was the intention behind them. But looking for a recommendation from the park board of where to install those signs.
Questions for Jesse on the signs?
I just have a recommendation. I think the entrances are a great spot, but it also wouldn't hurt to have something in the area where they have a tendency to use that area more than others, you know what I mean? Steps or railings or, we have them, I don't know how many we're planning on putting up. Got any like 8 by 10 signs you can put up?
Inches or feet?
So no, we just ordered a handful of those, and we ordered several so that they generally match if we put them in other parks, that it's kind of a similar standard throughout the park system. But it's up to you if you want to place them at multiple places within the park too. We can do that.
We could start
Kevin?
somewhere in there.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Natural fit to me would be potentially on the building, right? The bathroom building as you come in seems like a place, eye level seems to catch eyes. I'm not crazy about having it on the columns here necessarily of the pavilion or any of those, what I'm going to call the decorative parts of the, but on the bathroom building probably fits. And I think if we got a couple on there, it would probably be a good start. That's my 2 cents. It's mostly so that when we go out and say, hey, you can't be here, and they'll be like, oh, what? It's right there, right? As well as somewhat of preventative nature.
So you're describing like one on each big.
Yeah, I think if you're thinking people coming from the sidewalk from the north or from the south, you'd kind of have it covered there. I don't have the exact layout up here in front of us, but something on the building seems less bothersome to me than a sign in the grass or on our pretty parts of the park. So.
As long as you drive it right into the sprinkler lines.
Just
Yeah.
paint it on the sidewalks.
There are some parks that have that.
Paint it on the sidewalk?
It's like a decal sticker. But this looks fine to me. It's
Jonathan, any comments?
Yeah, I was just maybe I guess I don't know the color of the building versus the signage, and make sure it's not camouflage, because we obviously just want to make sure that people are able to see this. So, I mean, I am with you. We don't want the signage to be an eyesore, but yeah, I don't know if the proper if the coloration of the building is gonna is gonna impede people's ability to see this signage, so. But yeah, I think I'm with Kevin. I like to have the signs be as low impact as possible as well, so. Don't need them really staked into the grass or something, but.
Okay, so Troy, it sounded like you agreed with Jesse. Put one
I
at
like
each
what
entrance.
Jesse said, yes. I think that's a great start and
And
go from
then
there.
Kevin, your proposal is just one on each side of the building.
Yeah. Could we drag up a picture of our bathroom building easily? Can we think of somewhere where we got one?
I don't know if I have one available right here that Brent could pull up.
But I think it would fit because the green would match all of these. So some of our metal work that's there, the building itself is brown.
And
I
I'm
know
not
that.
great with
So,
color.
I think the color is just fine.
We
And
can put it on either side of the restroom building
Yeah,
if that's what
yeah, I think
the
either
general
side.
consensus of the board is. Yeah.
The restroom building sits kind of diagonally in there, so I think one kind of in the northeast, northeast and southwest you'd have it. At least to start. And with that, I'll make a motion to propose the two signs on the building as a starting place of this. They could always be taken down, added to, or augmented, so.
Any discussion on this beyond what we've had? All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That is approved.
Mr. Chair, can we jump back to the food allergy signs? I think that we missed
Oh,
that
I
one.
just totally skipped that, didn't I? My bad. Yes, discussion on food allergy signage. Sorry. Just-
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So following up on an item from last meeting, Ms. Steppen presented at the public forum about a request for food allergy signage placed at the parks. So we were tasked with providing some additional information, so I included a photo of this requested signage. Based on what I was able to find from the vendor, they're roughly about $40 a sign, and that's just the sign. That staff needs to get a post, hardware, and install. So really what we're looking for is, guidance if the park board is interested in placing these in the parks, and if so, where. We put a few recommendations if you're looking at anything that's got a playground that we should have this sign. Only ones that have both playgrounds and pavilions or picnic benches, just select parks, or really none if you're not interested in those signs.
Mr. President, for me?
Yeah, Troy.
So do we have any idea of how many children have developed, have had a allergic reaction in our parks from touching equipment or something that some other child has touched?
Not that
Do
we're
we know
aware
of any?
Not that I'm aware of.
So I'm a little hesitant to, and I understand their, their need and desire for awareness, but I think we could have a sign for everything versus a parent maybe telling a child, we have to make sure you wash your hands after you play on the playground, of the children who have food allergies. And I'm not trying to minimize this, but like I said, I think we could have a sign for just about everything in our parks. And at some point, where do we say some of this is just, you have to be a diligent parent of your own child. And so my opinion is that, if somebody came to us with some data that said, we have this many kids in the last 5 years that have had allergic reactions on our playgrounds or at our parks because of one way, they'd never be able to tell this. I mean, I'm an RN and I've never heard of it, and I'm not saying it can't happen, but that's my spiel on this.
Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I've spent a little time thinking about this one here, and I'm kind of torn or mixed on this. I feel like I want to do something to help the people that struggle with this, but I feel like the action item to make that happen is very counter to what I want other people in our parks doing. I want me personally, I want people in our parks going and getting popcorn, going watching the ball game, walking around, having picnics all over the place, not just in picnic areas. So I'm really struggling with the implementation of how this would work and not feel restricted restrictive to a greater vision or a greater group of people out there. So I think I'm okay with pushing the cleanliness side. Clean your hands after you're done eating. Makes perfect sense, okay? But I'm not super crazy about you can do this here, you can't do it there. Think about Arts in the Park. We have food vendors come. We'd be completely counter to our entire process, the entire activity of Arts in the Park if we said, oh, you can only eat it at picnic areas. So I think I'm okay with maybe very limited signage on clean your hands, wash your hands. It's a good process anyways. But I'm not a huge fan of, trying to control where people eat in our parks. So that's where I'm at. But I do want to help, but just not sure how to do it. Maybe there's some examples of some other parks that have taken this on and have data and have some examples, but.
Yeah, I think where I'm at is kind of to your point, Kevin, raising awareness I think is really powerful in that, hey, maybe don't bring, I know there's more allergies than, peanut allergies, but maybe don't bring peanut butter to the park and, have it smear over your kids' hands and then go to the monkey bars. And if people were more aware that, hey, there are food allergies in every community, including ours, could we do that in a lower cost, lower maintenance way, knowing that we are in the midst of master planning and not, I guess, in a spot to make more investments in capital items. Yeah, even if we could just start by maybe using our park Facebook account and making a post a month for 3 months just to get some awareness, something starting with that and seeing if that gets support or people to highlight that.
If I may.
Yeah.
may. I would rather see something like that as far as some awareness, but again, back to what I was saying. I think if we start with one, next thing you know, we have, a sign that says, make sure you wash your hands after using the bathroom, which, make sure you tie your shoes before you play on the playground. I mean, how many signs do we want in our parks is what I'm trying to say. And this could just snowball into, I'm not trying to, I know this is real, so I'm not trying to diminish the awareness of it and the need for awareness, but, somebody might make their kid a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for their picnic, and I don't want some parent coming up and saying, you need to get back to the picnic area, your kid's eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and things get crazy sometimes, and I would rather see this in an awareness on some social media device versus a sign in our park. To your point, Andrew.
Anyone like to attempt a motion of some kind?
Sure, I would make a motion to post an awareness similar to the sign that you just showed on our website or Facebook, and start with that, and however that might look. But I would not like to see signs put up in all of our parks by playgrounds and ball fields and such. So just Facebook and our website. Clear as mud.
Bob? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
There we go.
Any further discussion on the motion?
I think that is, if I may, that is probably the most feasible way to do this. I mean, again, we want to promote awareness for, the goers of the park, but again, the feasibility of making sure that every child goes to the bathroom, washes their hands after picnic, and moving on to the, it causes problems on a social level when, again, parents have to argue with other parents, and, we're all kind of responsible for our own actions. So I'm with you on this one, where it's, let's make sure that people are aware that people are vulnerable, and, that these types of problems can appear in social places and in public spaces, but I just don't feel the feasibility of putting signage up in the parks is there at this point in time. So I do agree 100% with the social blasts in whatever consistency and cadence we can come up with.
right. No further discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. And I promise to follow the agenda now, and we are on 7C, Lyman P. White Park update. Jesse and probably Paul.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, thank you. So WSB is here to present on what remains to be wrapped up with the greater park project, but maybe a quick update on the restoration project that we're working on too.
All right, thank you, Jesse, and members of the board. Good to see you all today. Getting into the memo a little bit that we provided in the packet, we basically are awaiting grass to grow in a drought, which has been harder than anyone would like to see for not only the contractor, but the look of the park right now. Obviously, we have not had a lot of rain, and we've been working with the contractor to come up with a watering plan. City staff did help the contractor with that a little bit by providing some time to go and turn the water on in the morning and turn it off in the evening. The contractor also hired a person up here to move sprinklers around during the day to ensure that that soil stays moist throughout the drought here. The rain, obviously, this weekend helped that situation a little bit. But we were really just waiting for that 70% perennial growth at the park so we can close out the stormwater permit and close the project out. The final pay voucher will be coming at some point in the future. We reduced contractor retainage to 1% with this last pay voucher, so we still have a little bit of money retained to keep them coming back to finish the project off. There's a couple of pay items that have yet to be paid out, but really what we consider attached to your memo here is the semifinal pay app, which is the one prior to the final pay app, and that final pay app will have the rest of the. We pay 70% of the perennials, the trees, the shrubs, all that stuff, and then the final pay app will get issued, and we'll enter into an agreement with the contractor that they have to honor their warranty period, because there is a 1-year warranty on any trees, shrubs, and perennials that may die in that year period. So Jesse elected to go that route. There's another route of holding money back from the contractor for a year, given kind of the funding mechanism that this project is under. That isn't really logistically, it's not a good option. And so the agreement way is the way that we figured would be the best moving forward on this one. So yeah, that's kind of the update as far as the park is concerned. I did stop by on Sunday after the heavy rains to make sure there wasn't any major washouts. I was a little bit nervous about that with the grass not being in place yet, but the blanket seemed to have held up that's over those areas. The contractor has been asked to go and mow and bag the areas that are seeded for the weeds that are getting quite tall in the park before the 4th of July, because I know there's a celebration there this coming weekend. So I think they're going to be out on site here this week before that celebration happens to kind of make it look like it's supposed to again. There's a cost update. Jesse and I spent some time here in the last couple weeks going through the LCCMR buckets. There was 4 buckets of funding with that that came along with a budget that was originally laid out with the LCCMR Commission. We went through and split all the project costs out in those buckets to make sure that we had enough remaining in each one, not only to finish off the park project, but also to fund the riverbank restoration project. So you can see in those remaining budgets, those are the amounts remaining that we have in those buckets. You can kind of consider the riverbank restoration project, about 50,000 of that goes into that first one, site design and engineering, another 50% into that construction admin, and then the construction costs will go into that site prep and landscaping item. And so that's the costs that the amount of budget we have for those that project. And then most of the other items will be coming out of that feature construction installation item. And that information will also be used for Jesse to apply for a reimbursement from LCCMR for the project costs. Any questions with the park project?
I don't think so.
Okay, so with the riverbank restoration project, right before the meeting, we submitted a 30% design to Jesse. So we'll be setting up a meeting with him to review that and go over any concerns that he has with the 30% plans. They're kind of a high level look at what we're planning out there. We've done the topographic survey. We've had a kickoff meeting on site. And so really we'll just be waiting to set up a meeting with Jesse and then push the project forward into 60, 90, 100. Hopefully get out to bid this fall yet, get a majority of the work done so we have time in the spring to get that vegetation growing along the riverbank. That's kind of where we're at there.
Kevin?
Yeah, what points in those, in that plan completion, do you want us to having a look? We don't want to send anybody back to redo stuff, so.
I guess I'd leave that up to.
I'm wondering what
Mr.
your percentage to complete is, how it's going to align with our meetings, so that we don't get to 90% and we're like, oh, let's redo this. And,
Right,
You can
right.
tell I'm working
Yeah.
the design field.
Yeah, certainly we don't want to do that. I think this would be a good time, if Jesse has the opportunity to review the 30%, we have our internal meeting, maybe at the next meeting, or if you guys have a special meeting in between then, we could take a quick look at those as a group and go over any concerns you guys have. 30% design is really the time to dig deep into a plan, because once we get to 60, even 70, you're starting to get to the point of no return where it's going to take a lot of time to go back and redo things. So yeah, certainly I think to that point, having us come to that, whatever meeting is next on your docket, that would be acceptable to come forward and kind of show you those plans.
That's all. Thank you.
Beat me to the punch. That was what I was just about to jump into is, I think I'm gonna just quick run through the plans from a high level, say, hey, these are big concerns. Let's quick revise those, get them taken care of, and then we'll have a little bit more of a revised 30% that I would want to present.
Awesome. Any other questions for Paul?
All right.
Cool.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have approving Parks ARPA project concepts.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. So another plans that we've been working with, trying to get Widseth to continue to move forward with the design process. So we're at a point here where we have some concept drawings that I'd like to get some park board input on, if they want to see some changes here. To the exact point we were just talking about, now is a great time to make those changes before we continue on down the design process. So again, we have 3 projects we're having designed. So the Lum Park Campground, which is the first one on your screen, relatively straightforward, gravel pathway with the gravel campground pads, generally trying to fit the space that we have. Again, we have a wetland to the south and then trees kind of scattered out throughout. I have a little bit of concern with some of the shorter ones, like the 25-footer or the 30-footers. Those make me a little bit concerned, but I understand with the site constraints why they are limited to that. I'm sure we don't want to be really removing a bunch of trees through there to accommodate bigger stalls, but you can also see as you progress further, it does have some longer sites that can accommodate not only just a longer RV or camp vehicle, but some accessory passenger vehicle space too. So, like I said, generally pretty straightforward. I think just some tweaks with where their tie-in is. It's not really a formal gravel path that legs off of there. It's kind of a beat down path. So we might have to do a little bit of tweaking there, but generally pretty straightforward. So if you're okay with it, I'll just run through the 3 and then we'll maybe jump back and jump for comments if that works. Second one is the beach. So this is the second iteration. So the first one that came through, they had trees kind of lining the historic wall. From a maintenance standpoint, I was a little concerned. I didn't necessarily want trees in the middle of the beach, as well as from an aesthetic standpoint. If you're at the shade structures, I think that would hinder your view of the lake. So that was one change I asked them to make. So generally, they kind of fit the space pretty well, especially after you remove the restroom building to expand that beach further south. One thing they put in here with the removal of the parking lot was kind of a buffer space of native planting garden between the beach and the parking lot. So that is something that's in there with other features in there. They did, identify spots for grills, picnic tables, a feet washing station kind of in that central location, as well as a combination of both natural shade with the trees, as well as the tensile shade structures. They got a few identified there. Seating probably in that area. We'd have to figure out what we'd want to do for seating. That's something we can make a decision with down the road as well. Yeah, I think that kind of highlights most of the main points of the beach expansion concept. If you want to move to the next one, so there are two concepts in the JCs. The first one is one that is generally pretty close to what is in the master plan. Something that was shared with me by Woodseth is some of the concerns with this layout, this space. The constraints that they have with the playground area, with the drainage ditch, they weren't able to accommodate as big of a soccer field. They're also not able to accommodate as big as a parking area. Just trying to fit the pieces into the space. They have some concerns from grading. It's going to cost a little bit more to do the grading, especially with raising all that stuff up above where we wanted to get it kind of out of that swamp. So a lot of those concerns of what it's going to cost to make this work and then fitting it into a small space. Another concern, one of the other part of it was the trees by the concession stand, making sure that we move that pleasure rink in a way that we're not going to have to wipe out all of those trees to be able to accommodate the pleasure rink. Obviously, it's not ideal. So again, trying to find a way to fit all of this and make it work. If you see the second version of this in the next page, this is their recommendation for the layout. Really more fits what the space is now. Doesn't really change much from what it is now. But again, trying to fit the space, they felt like this was a little bit easier, a little bit more cost effective from a grading standpoint, less fill, to be able to construct and can accommodate more parking spaces. But again, doesn't really fit the vision of the master plan. So I wanted to make sure that I presented both, let you know what Woodseth's concerns from a grading standpoint, from a constructability standpoint, and gather some comments and some direction to give them on JCs. With that, I don't know if I have any other quick comments to mention on those.
Cool. Should we start with alum campground feedback? All right.
I have comments on every single one, so.
Go for it.
Yeah, well, could I possibly get the GIS up here real quick of alum? My concern here is if you look at the drawing, as the drawing is presented of the existing campground, as you pull through the existing campground, you drive through the little thing and then you back up into these stalls that are kind of pinwheeled around it. If I'm understanding the drawing correctly, it's not really showing any of those stalls. And when you go out there, you'll see that there's a direction that kind of the traffic follows through there. This seems kind of backwards. There's the stalls. Okay. So if you now overlay, you can see the loop in there. It is my understanding or my thinking here, maybe I could be wrong, is that we were going to keep that's existing there, and then we're going to add this little leg that comes off. But it appears the way that it's drawn as though it's coming in
from the road.
Yeah, I just don't, I'm not sure I follow. What's going on here?
That come up in the road.
So I believe they wanted to come in off of here, somewhere in this area. Weave through here.
Yep.
And this is the leg that they're showing.
Okay.
Not really a leg, so tying into this.
Okay, got it. All right. That makes much more sense to me because it's,
Coming, weaving through these trees, so this is what I was talking about, like the shorter stalls. I understand because of the trees that are
Right.
there, but getting in here and then tying in here, so maybe we have to re-gravel this leg to tie that.
yeah, so if you go back to the drawing here real quick, sorry to toggle you back and forth. You can, and then look over to the right of the page, right-hand side of the page, if you can get over there. You can see that their drawing looks absolutely nothing like reality. I don't know why, but it just doesn't fit.
But it's not showing the
Is there,
rest of it.
I know that. I understand that the rest is down here, but we're going to add that little island up in there to turn around in? Is that right?
This here,
Yes?
so they, like I said, they drew it in there like it exists, but
Okay.
it's not really an existing path.
Okay,
It's just kind of that beat down, you can kind of see it's like a weathered trail.
got it.
So you almost have to, if you want to build this connection, you have to almost build it back to the existing road.
Okay, that makes sense. So that little leg there is really, that needs constructed as well. The bottom half of the,
Find a way to tie it back into,
okay, perfect.
that really doesn't exist.
Yep, got it. That was my only real question on that. Other than that, I think this generally captures the basic look of what we were after. Certainly added some great stalls there. So that's all for me.
Anything, Troy? Jesse, would each stall have power? Like 240 or something?
That is the intention, is that we would feed power as well.
Cool.
240 or just?
I believe
We don't need that, do we?
Usually for air conditioners.
I think you would be 240, if I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure we would pretty much feed about what we're doing with all the other stalls.
All right, let's move on to the beach design.
And you're just looking for kind of a macro view approval of these, is that at this point, or general feedback to bring back to with or where? What are we looking for an action item here today?
All of the above.
Okay.
Really direction to give to WIDSETH on, because we want to move into planned production.
Okay.
So we really want to make our tweaks to the concept here and provide that comments as they develop plans. Because again, it's more expensive for us and more hours that they have to expend if they have to dial plans back and redo them. So this is a great time to make these changes.
Got it.
Thoughts on the beach?
I'll start off. Thank you, to me, this kind of on the right track here, but this looks like it's way overkill just in my personal opinion. A couple of concerns I have is we're not really showing how we're connecting to the existing pavilion, which sits roughly where your cursor is. I'm showing, I do see the connection to the parking lot, and maybe it's just a scale thing here because it's not, we're not looking at this in large enough scale. But our existing pavilion is kind of down in this general lower left-hand corner here somewhere.
Pavilion 1, the big one,
What's that?
the big pavilion?
yes.
That would be further south than you can see.
Understood. What I'm getting at here is the pathways appear as though they have no connection to it at all.
The one off of the parking lot, you can kind of see it, kind of the flared end, that ramp right there that he's indicating with the cursor. That's the existing, as far as I understand, that's the existing one that goes further to the south and connects to the pavilion.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Which there really isn't one there, is there? I mean, I don't think
Yes.
it's really ADA.
It is not accessible, no.
Correct. It's
Yeah,
a
so-
walkway, but it's not ADA accessible, correct?
Got it.
Yeah.
Can you
So-
pull up the GIS?
So the pathway to me is coming out of the pavilion and connecting to the parking lot, which I think I'm kind of generally okay with. You got to unload and get up to the pavilion there. But I also just feel like the building needs to be, we're going to keep it. We've talked about this, that we're probably going to keep this. It needs to just be incorporated into the landscape. Just generally the whole plan, I think it could be much, much better versus just a little leg offshoot here and then still kind of a standalone building. So that's my thought on that. I'd just love to see how this is actually just a larger plan view of how that's all going to work down there. And can we go back to the other again? Real quick, sorry. And so my only thoughts are here is I feel like what we need over there is just super simplified. We need a grass, we need like trees, we need a nice beach, some shade area, and that's kind of about it. I'm not sure that we need a stair step structure going down. I'm thinking of other beaches that I've been to that are basically grass comes down, some boulders, and then sand, and you're out there. My concern here is just the maintenance, the cost of building this, the native planting gardens, who's going to take care of those? What are they going to grow into? What does that look like? This is very impressive, but I just am thinking about, oh my gosh, this looks like another huge park project, vastly bigger than I was thinking. So that's my 2 cents here, but generally the concept, it's in the right kind of spot.
Can I quick clarify that the steps that are shown that kind of go to the beach, those are the existing ones coming out of the restroom building? So the intention is to leave the wall and the steps essentially intact as best we can. I think they have to do a little bit of removal on the one end to tie in, especially with that ADA walk, but other than that, everything stays intact outside of the, obviously the restroom building itself is no longer there in this drawing.
Right.
Andrew. So I kind of agree with Kevin. It looks really busy versus, expanding the beach and I do like the fact of trees and shade down there. But I just wonder, do we need as much sidewalk as we're showing there? One whole sidewalk running the whole length of that parking lot, or do we just need an access from the parking lot to the beach area up in the side, left side of the, does it have to run that whole length where there's another one coming out anyway? Or could we just have the one at the bottom come up and connect in? The other part, I guess, I'm not seeing and don't know is, whatever happened with the city council as far as the side parking of the road coming in there. Did they ever make a decision on that as far as having some angled parking along that road, or
No additional parking on that
no
road.
additional parking?
No changes to the existing road, but also no additional parking.
And then at the bottom where it says connection to parking lot, bottom center, what parking lot are we talking?
Towards the shower restroom facility.
And had we planned on putting a playground down here?
I don't think so.
No. That's what stood out the most to me, I think, was the giant playground. I don't think that was kind of in our vision for the beach. I don't hate a playground there. I just don't know if we have the money to invest in a new playground there either.
I know they're indicating that it'd be a future phase, so they're not including that necessarily in this project specifically, but they're just kind of identifying the space for one.
Even the native planting garden, somebody's got to take care of that, right?
We've got a few over at Buster Dog Park if you want to go see what they look like.
That's been kind of a maintenance challenge. I think a couple years ago, Katie,
That's my
you brought
point.
up like nobody was maintaining it, and yeah, it's been difficult.
I think we're adding more work in here than what we should be. I love the trees, don't get me wrong. I'm all for trees and shade, and I'm not even against the shade structures there, but looks really busy.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah, John.
Yeah, I think what my feeling on this was, we wanted to have a path that went down from the upper parking lot down to the beach, have some shade structures, shrink the parking lot, make that bottom parking lot ADA accessible to get people down to the lower half of the beach, pull the beach out, and we wanted to keep it relatively simple is what I kind of gathered from the original plans. And like I said, they definitely pulled the beach back. The building's gone, which we all love. The parking lot shrunk. We have ADA accessibility and a sidewalk from the top, and then access to the pavilion. I feel like the rest of it, minus the shade, is maybe just a little too much.
Yeah, I think my thoughts on this, I like the beach and the shade and the trees, and then everything else feels like a bit much, like the planting garden in particular. The trees and kind of the semi-arc on the right feel a lot like, feels like an opportunity like we found with Bain, where we have shade. If we had a berm there, that's a nice kind of natural seating area that's also very flexible. It's in shade. And then still having fixed seating with the shade sails for picnic tables and chairs and benches. It's a nice mix of, we're going to bring our stuff and sprawl out and picnic versus grandpa wants to sit down and, grandkids are going to go on the beach and you don't want to be laying in the grass. So I think that's a nice accessible mix. Yeah, the native gardens, the playground, it feels beyond what we're maybe interested in future phase or otherwise. I mean, it is nice to see where it would go, but
If I can quick clarify one piece, I know accessibility has been mentioned a couple times. So they do have an identified ADA path that kind of connects. So to Troy's point about along that native planting garden, that's kind of what they've identified as the future ADA accessible path to get to the lower beach, to get to the waterfront. To your point, there's a lot of extra walkways shown here, but one going kind of towards along the tree line from the parking lot, and you can kind of see it wrap back around the tensile structures. So this is, again, to provide an accessible pathway to a shade structure, where like some of the trees are going to be out in kind of a turf grass area where they may not be a bit less accessible, but the tensile shade structures, they would have an accessible path. So I think that's where they were trying to draw some of those, but to your point, there's a lot of other extra paths in there.
Yeah, I'm just concerned with some of the other, looking at sidewalks in parks, you know, they tend, especially when you start adding trees and then the sidewalks are buckling and creating trip hazards and becoming more hazardous than it would be if they weren't there, but it just seems like a lot.
So if I may, can I summarize what I'm hearing for comments to give back to what Seth? Limiting sidewalk where we can, trying to dial back how many different walkways are kind of going this way and that way. Eliminating the native planting garden between the beach and the parking lot. If that's the case, what would you like to see there? Would you like to see turf grass or just more beach?
Me personally, yeah. I think it's okay to build parks with just grass, trees, and beach.
Yeah, I mean, you could split it, extend the beach a little bit to the left on the screen and
Okay.
more turf. I mean, I think that's all good.
Okay.
couple
And
more
then
shade structures too.
what?
I think the shade structures are good, yeah.
Oh.
Or more, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
more.
yeah. I like the shade structure idea.
And then incorporating a graded berm along that tree line along the east bend of trees. Am I missing anything other than those three?
Can I just ask one question, please? The ADA path, you talked about, okay, so can the ADA path not come off the bottom of the parking lot and just loop right down and get over? Or do we need all of this length, is what you're saying? Do we need all of this length to make this happen?
No, I think
Okay.
they were trying to consolidate how many accesses were coming off the parking lot, but I'm sure we can come up with a way to come maybe off the north part of the parking lot
Right.
for an accessible path to there.
That makes way more sense to me, because we built basically a sidewalk that goes right next to a building when you could just go through the
So,
building, or
one-
through the parking lot.
Right.
One consideration with that is if you're using kind of the shade structures and you want to get to the beach, if you're using like a wheelchair or something like that, that would require you to go into the parking lot to go back out. So one thing to consider if you were to move it from there to the parking lot.
But my understanding is that we don't have to meet the ADA slope if it's just grass, right? If we just let people walk on grass,
Correct.
right? So I'm okay with creating an ADA surface on the bottom, I guess is what my thinking is, for if people want to get to the beach and get to the bottom part off the bottom of there, but I'm not sure that we need an improved ADA path all the way from the lower beach all the way back up to the top parking lot, which is what all these sidewalks would be kind of connecting to do, but I don't know.
I can make that adjustment. Yep. Any other comments I should be passing along? Did we capture it pretty good? Perfect.
Sounds good.
You have something, Jonathan?
Then we have JC's, the two different options there.
I'll start. The whole idea of this concept to us originally started with getting the parking lot out of the middle of the park. That was like the whole impetus of the redesign. I totally get that it's a little more harder. And I'm not sure that I even get that, because you got to grade a parking lot the same as you got to do a soccer field. So I'm not sure that I'm wrapping my head around how the money difference between creating more grass to make more parking lot is fleshing out way cheaper. I'm not sure I can get my head there. Somebody way smarter than me will have to explain that, but because when I look at this looks like less work to me than the other. But I personally, when I saw this concept come up, I'm like, boom, that's it. That's exactly what I was thinking. Keep the cars out away from the playground area, protect that core area. I think the pleasure rink has drifted bigger and more into the soccer field than I guess I was thinking. But this, from a concept, to me, totally fits. You're not having cars in traffic right in the middle of your core park area. So, I would need some more explanation on why this is vastly more expensive. I'm not sure that's fitting with me, but this is what I had in mind personally. And the other is the exact opposite I had in mind.
Right?
If I may. To me, the parking lot looks much smaller than I was anticipating than what we had originally talked about. It, you know, it has one row. Seems tremendously small in comparison. You know, apparently we can't go farther north here because of the wetland.
Or west.
Yeah, and or west either. And what's the size of a soccer field? What's an actual soccer field size?
So we indicated 300 by 180 in the master plan. I had them shrink this down. So the original, when I tried to measure it out, 300 basically puts you on the border of the playground to the drainage way. So knowing that, you know, feasibly to grade that, it was going to be tough. So we had it shrink down by 30 feet. I did a little bit of looking into, and it doesn't make too much of a difference by shrinking them 30 feet, but it makes things a little bit more fittable, I guess, with the 270, because now you can have a little bit of a buffer between the two. But it does allow you to still divide that out into 3 separate smaller fields if need be for maybe youth events.
Yeah, and I am a little miffed by the size of the pleasure rink. Does it need to come that far down? Or could it just be up directly behind
Between the trees that are up in that.
directly west of the building and then down to kind of where the existing parking lot ends there? Does it have to come that far? The parking area seems really small. And the other one, I don't know. Can we look at the other one? I don't dislike that really, other than the fact is why do we have the snake look in there? Is that just for, I mean, would it be more if it didn't have that?
I can't tell you if that was an aesthetics thing or
And I'm
if it
just saying, 'cause
functionally fits around the
Pleasure
park.
rink over to the right here to make this work.
yeah, but I hate to lose those trees because there's not much, you know, those are nice mature trees. And
You could shrink the soccer field similarly and slide that pleasure rink assembly
could we
further
slide
over.
the parking area to the west with that design and just have it be,
They didn't show it as well on here, but it does run into that wetland again.
because I'm thinking then we would really get by with having that much sidewalk for the ADA accessibility with this design, wouldn't we? We would need far less sidewalk with this design than on the other design, wouldn't we?
For getting an accessible walk from the parking lot,
From the parking lot to all other areas of the,
it would be a shorter distance, correct?
yeah.
Yeah, I think in design one, is there any sort of issues getting to like the building and the fields and all that? Like how will our vehicles and our maintenance and all that come through it? I mean, because I assume the thick black line there is a walkway, right? So how does I mean, and maybe this is obvious, but how do we get to these places? Or like if someone needs to drop, you know, something that maybe isn't walkable all the way down a walkway up to the fields or to getting to the building, is there any way for them to get around?
It's tough to say from this high level. We could potentially use the walkway path, the ADA path, as kind of the access point. We might be able to use the south and kind of loop south of the soccer fields, or even going around the playground to the north. Again, this is pretty high level, so it's tough to say exactly what the grading would look like. But we would find a way to get access through it. Obviously, we have to, so we can maintain the fields and stuff. So.
To me, the size of the pleasure rink is just very large. I did a quick measurement of the Gregory one because I see that one enough. I can kind of frame that. That's 100 by 130. If you imagine it's like a right triangle. So this is quite a bit larger than that. And we have an Olympic rink. So like I think skating is great in the winter, but that's also a lot of skating area. So, yeah, if that could shrink and then give us a little bit more parking and not take out all the trees. We've all been saying, so. But I definitely like the parking lot on the left side. I agree with Kevin that our goal is not to have kids running into the playground from the playground. Or, sorry, into the parking lot from the playground. That's, yeah, it's tag in a very, very bad form. So I like this one that's up a lot more.
And I don't dislike this. I don't like the limited parking.
Does the wetland buffer apply to fields and parking lots? It's my understanding always with my work that the wetland buffer applies to structures, and that landscape features can go right up to a wetland.
I don't know if the parking lot would apply because it's an impervious surface. It might in this instance, but I cannot say that for sure.
If we could utilize all that space, I think we would almost nearly double that parking.
I know that's what I was thinking when we originally
When we
did it.
drew, yes, when you drew it up, it definitely showed more than that.
I mean, you got a driveway coming in that's right next to the wetland. There's no way that's meeting the 15-foot. All the way as the creek turns there to go down the road, that's not meeting the 15 feet. See that right there? That's right on it.
Are we thinking we'd pave this or leave it gravel?
I'm thinking gravel, personally.
That's what we talked about, just to minimize the maintenance of it.
DNR still looks at gravel as impervious surface, but
Oh, okay.
so I'm not sure that there's an advantage there. But to me, you're still be running that water off into that wetland or a retention.
Would you be willing to, I don't say shrink the soccer field more, but lose from like the 180, go down to maybe 160, and then you would gain another row of essentially 20-foot stalls?
Yeah, I mean, feet, so that's, how wide is a football? Because the kids play high school football or soccer on a football field. How wide is a football field?
52 yards.
Yards by maybe 50.
So that's 300 by 150-ish?
Yeah.
So it seems yes, that could work. Especially because we think the pleasure rink might be drifting out too far to the west also. Follow me? So it feels like you could narrow the soccer field a little and narrow the pleasure rink a little and scooch over to the right, gaining us more part, maybe enough for the other stalls on the westerly side of the parking lot, right?
Could gain a little on each side potentially.
Could the pleasure rink be shorter and go south of the tree line? So like the K and rink from there down, and then the
This
soccer
makes it
field.
harder
You
to
could
get
double the
to.
parking spots, because if the corridor space that is using to end load into those spots, all you need is the depth of a car on the left side, that's like 12 feet is all we need to gain to get spots all the way down the westerly side. And then have parking on two sides, you know what I mean? That's my thoughts.
Yeah.
And there's, I see it's asking about that building being removed. They do have quite a bit of their equipment and stuff in there. I think that would be
Correct.
probably a bad choice.
Correct.
And down below there, is that just where we're keeping extra field dirt? Where it says, can this be removed?
Isn't it?
Is it a pad?
I don't think it's really a pad, but yeah, I think it's generally extra dirt that's
I think so,
kind of
they
kept
just
down there.
Keep dirt for the field. Obviously, that could be moved, right?
You could potentially put it towards the outfields in between the fields.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that could just slide over.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about planting trees along the first and third baselines of those ball fields as well, right?
Those trees are in.
They're in?
The new trees for all the parks are in. Yep. So we have new trees on both lines of both fields, and then a handful of trees basically between the concession stands and that existing tree you can kind of see in the aerial. We have a few scattered through there too.
Cool. Yeah, nice. Yeah,
I don't dis-
I don't want to lose any trees in there.
I don't disagree that the other plan is easier and more convenient, but it's counter to our general vision. So that's my thought.
I feel like you have good feedback, Jesse.
So really quick, generally this concept, shrink the pleasure rink, probably cut it in half on length, slide it maybe north, a little bit closer to the warming house, maybe do a little bit of massaging on the soccer field and the pleasure rink to shift everything a little bit further east to accommodate the extra row of stalls. Is that about a good summary?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I think your drawing, Kevin, had sort of woven the pleasure rink in and around the trees.
It did, yeah. Yep. Which could happen with just some grading. It wouldn't be, it'd be really cool to have the lights kind of hanging through on those trees and then.
Cool.
So just to remember, we extended that line of trees south, so that it's not shown on here, but there are new trees there too, so we'll have to be very careful not to get into those.
You could freeze around the bigger ones.
Yeah.
The brand new ones probably wouldn't love that.
Well, if they're up a little higher, you know, you just do your grading so they're up a little higher and protected. And
Oh, yeah.
That way they just smack their head on them.
Cool. I think that wraps up ARPA concepts. So then we've got discussion on hockey goal placement requests.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Looks like our PDF actually didn't get placed under there, so I'm going to actually read the request real quick. It'll take less than 5 minutes. Last year, we placed a hockey net on the large pond hockey rink at Memorial Park during the summer months. This year, we received the same request to place a hockey net on one end of the large pond hockey rink. The only difference of this year from last year is we now run a pickleball league on Tuesdays and Thursdays that requires nets to be usable during week after week. Staff is so some of our comments. Staff is concerned about the higher risk of damage to the nets by allowing skating of all forms of that verb, rollerblading, skateboarding, roller skates. The higher chance of the nets getting damaged. We actually found moving the nets in general can cause some unintended damage. There was talk of having a roller hockey league, but that unfortunately did not have the following it originally had when requested. Logistically, a roller hockey league would have also have the nets up, put these nets at, would have also put these nets at risk potentially. Staff is recommending putting the hockey net on the small rink at Memorial Park instead of the large rink. And I'll open it up for discussion.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
to put their net on the small rink.
Yeah. I mean, if it's gonna get used and people need it and want it versus fighting with the pickleball stuff that's going on there.
We have basketball currently in the small rink, right? We have
There's
two
two
basketball
basketball
nets.
goals. I guess there could be clarification on where on the small rink you would want it placed
I mean, could it go
on the side.
center, in the center, on the side of the small rink? And be out of the way of using the basketball hoops?
Could try it.
Thinking those activities are probably mutually exclusive. If you're shooting a puck or a ball around, I don't know if somebody wants to be playing basketball at the same time.
I don't know if there's a great option for having it, but it seems like a better option than having it on the rink with the pickleball courts.
But the basketballs are the weighted, right? They roll around, is that right? Aren't they?
They're
Isn't that
very
what we-
weighted. We
Yeah.
do not move the basketball
Yeah.
hoops.
They're the big weighted ones, right? Yeah. How hard is it to get the nets on and off? It is. It's not good moving the pickleball nets either, right? That's what you were saying?
We're finding a lot of the brakes on the wheels are kind of messed up, and you need at least 2 people to move a net. Otherwise, it like flips over, and like the center, there's like a standard in the middle of the net that keeps like breaking, and even the wind at times, if it pushes it, like it'll just flip over, and then you've got damage. So, yeah.
I seem to remember a park board member that said we needed permanent.
Can we take the small rink, put a basketball hoop on one side and a hockey net on the other side?
As of right now, on Mondays, there is a YMCA basketball
That
program.
uses it full court, right?
Yes.
On the small rink, right?
Yes.
And there's a lot of pickleball players over there, I've noticed. I don't know what you guys are seeing, but there's a fair amount of use on the pickleball, right?
Yes. 19 teams on Tuesdays, 12 teams on Thursdays. Yep.
Plus use
Plus general public, yes.
beyond that, right?
I think we're only moving towards more permanent pickleball nets, as Troy so subtly hinted at. So putting a hockey net there isn't going to be, yeah, I think the small rink makes sense. They can move it when they want, Katie, right? Like they could slide it in front of a basketball hoop for an hour and
The net, I
Yeah.
believe it's pretty movable. I mean, it's heavy. You might need 2 people, but yeah.
Hockey net?
The hockey net.
Yeah.
Yes.
makes sense to me.
Otherwise, but that is otherwise just sitting in the small rink over off onto one of the sides, right, to the south?
In previous years, it was on the south side at the far end. It's just not out yet.
Okay. Do they make smaller or more portable hockey nets that could be just kind of pulled out and used in when hockey kids want to play if no basketball players are there? Anyone know of? No? We just don't have it out yet, and I think that's what's precipitated the call, because we had one out on the small rink last year, right? Hockey
We
net?
had one of the large pond hockey hockey goal on the far south side all last summer. Yes,
On the big rink. though.
on the big
Yeah,
rink,
not on the
correct.
small rink. It was on
And-
the big
yep.
rink.
Understood.
To me, it seems the most feasible is to try it on the rink with the basketball hoops.
That's what I think too.
See how things go, and maybe Monday, that's just not an option, during the
Yeah.
YMCA program or whatever. I'm sure staff doesn't want to run back and forth there every day and take it on and put it on and take it off, and, but maybe Monday is just a day that they don't have that option, I don't know.
Okay, so if you look at the rink also, if you look at the small, can you go to the GIS, please, real quick? What if we just put the hockey nets on the north and south, and the basketball
That's what we were
nets
saying.
put a hockey net here and a hockey net there,
But
right?
they just want one, so if that's what we were saying, just put it in between them,
Down here,
yes.
yeah, perfect,
On the south boards.
on the
Yes.
south boards.
Okay, of the small rink. Okay.
Other direction, Brent. Way up to the north.
Do you need a motion, Katie?
I'm
Sure.
sorry, I was
yes.
slow behind you
yes.
guys. Oh, I thought you were talking about the south side on the big rink.
You do need,
No.
oh,
Yeah, right there. Perfect.
Okay.
You want to zoom in there,
That's the
Brent?
steel that's right in the middle of the pickleball stuff.
worked out.
Zoom in on that
So the
smaller
south
rink.
side of the small rink,
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, because you can see the basketball court is painted on there. You got
Yeah.
plenty of space.
Yeah.
To leave the rink.
Yep.
Down there to the bottom of the bottom of the, put the net down at the bottom on the boards.
Yeah.
yeah. And with that being said, maybe just leave it there Monday as well, and they just
All the
can't
time.
use it,
Just
can't
leave
use it
there all
during
the time. It ain't
Monday.
gonna hurt the basketball
Right.
players.
Oh, it's, yeah, what, 10, 20 feet off?
Yeah,
the court.
absolutely. Okay, I'll make a motion. We put a net on the small basketball court, on the small hockey rink, or the basketball court in the summer on the south boards.
Okay, great.
Second.
Thank God you seconded that because I didn't want to rephrase it.
Any further discussion? Great. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hockey net is approved.
What are they shooting into that? Just tennis balls or something?
I just filled the request. I don't know. It could be street hockey, it could be
I'm just thinking there's no fence along that edge, is there? We get a couple cars going by on the road there. It'll be-
Maybe they're good shots.
Recreation.
Sounds like a streets problem.
Sounds like a streets problem.
We could just put a sign up.
All right. Item 7F, Triangle Park access.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So something that Park Chair Andrew requested that we discuss here, future access points for Triangle. It included an attachment that has a concept drawing that just shows some of the potential opportunities for access between the park and Fur and Bluff. So I also included a copy of the master plan for a quick reference, but right now we're not identifying any street projects coming up, but should we do a street project where crossings and curb cut accesses is part of the scope, just identifying, hey, this is where the park board would like to see them in the future. So just trying to identify that for when that day does come around. So I have these things drawn up in the agenda. I did mention that from a staff perspective, in the engineering side, my only concern is the far west access. There's some electrical infrastructure kind of tucked into that corner. Makes it a little bit difficult once you get into the park where that pathway would potentially go. If it was my recommendation, I would slide that a little bit further east of the electrical box and make it more of a mid-block crossing, as neither the intersection is controlled there, crossing Fur. It doesn't make much of a difference that it's uncontrolled where that crossing necessarily goes, but that would be my recommendation there. But other than that, I'm looking for direction from the park board where they'd like to see those crossings when that time comes.
Kevin.
I'm ready. This actually looks pretty similar to the same design that Paul Sandy and I had quite some time ago when we were first working on this. This was just a meeting out there with the playground guy. But the one thing I will say that is missing from this that we talked about was a connection running east and west across 6 over to the sidewalk that you can see cursor up and right, a little more right.
By the home?
And up by the, nope, down, sorry. And
Like
right now,
mid-block.
straight right. Right there, going, see that side? Not that one, right up.
Going across 8th.
It's right here. There's a sidewalk right here. So it feels like there should be a double load into this corner, but
Yeah, that'd be nice.
There currently is no sidewalk on the south side of that, where that's coming from,
Right
correct? Yes.
there is.
There it
There is a sidewalk there,
There's one here and there's one here.
but nothing over to the left, over to the west, right,
There is a sidewalk that dead ends here, but there's no sidewalks either side of here.
okay.
So this one here, I guess I'm neutral on, but I feel like this should come in from both sides this way.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
We cut those trees down, we could see that sidewalk from the aerial view.
That's a good point. We should, for GIS perspective, we should really get a tree removal system in place. So it's easier to design where to put trees from a GIS standpoint.
I actually like what Kevin just said. I think that makes perfect sense to have two accesses on that corner. And if that were the case, would that be enough? Would we need any others for that small of a park?
My thinking is no, because I'm concerned about the one on the top right, because if you put in what would hypothetically be a handicap ramp there, right, Jesse, at the top right part of the park, it feels like that should have a capture on the other side, which there's no way to go. It's going to nowhere.
That would
It's
be
literally
a-
going to the street.
That would be general practices. You want to have both a departure ramp as well as a receiving
Right.
ramp. So you would want to have to develop walkway connecting along Bluff.
There isn't one.
Yeah, there's not.
Probably never will be.
Yeah. Yeah, and access would be a great start.
Yeah.
So that southeast corner.
Where the sign
Yeah.
is, it'd be great.
That would fit, yeah. You arrive, you see a sign.
May.
Yeah, John.
I think I absolutely love that side of the park. I think, you know, when I'm thinking about the whole concept, right, is coming up from Gregory into Triangle, like continuing to promote the connectivity of the park system. You know, I just don't, yeah, obviously the bottom left corner just kind of doesn't make any sense, I guess, when you look at it. So, you know, the best way is to go around at that point. But all I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about it as a concept, like come up from Gregory into Triangle, and then you're going up from Gregory around and then back up that way. So as much as it doesn't really make a lot of sense, or like kind of really awkward in that bottom left corner, I think that's the only thing that I feel kind of this idea misses, is that Gregory's there and it's so weird coming into that corner. But
The sidewalk on Bluff, Jesse, do you know about the future, what that is? Because there's a sidewalk that comes down Bluff on both the north and the south that just like stops one block to the west.
Likely we would address it through a reconstruction, but
Yeah.
that one's not in our even kind of 10-year window that we're even looking at. So
So maybe you do this corner down here when you get those figured out or something, but I don't know.
I mean, it is so close.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Here's the one,
There.
and then this one stops right here.
It was weird. So the consensus I'm hearing is the southeast access, but also include the north side of that intersection.
Yep, correct.
Yeah, I guess, would anyone like to attempt a motion? Do you need a yeah, you need a motion.
Just a discussion item at this point, so
Oh,
I think I got a pretty general consensus. We would bring it back, should we do like a resurfacing project where we would want to do accessible ramp work at the same time. We would just confirm, hey, this is what we discussed, get another buy off there. Perfect.
Excellent. Item 8G, direction on location of United Way Born Learning Trail.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. So a follow-up from a couple months ago, we had United Way come and present to the park board about the Born Learning Trail, and that, the signs and sidewalk painting to try and engage children and families within our park system. The park board at that time said, hey, we do want to see this within our parks, or park, and United Way kind of committed to providing the signage, the paint, and the labor to install that in one of the parks. So really, at this point, United Way's brought in some of the signs that have been built, so they can definitely show you some of those. But what we're really looking for from the park board now is kind of a location. So I put 3 kind of potential options, focusing on areas where we have some walkways that are in general close vicinity to a playground, where you're going to see that children and family traffic. I think that was kind of the intention behind the Born Learning Trail, is you want to see that children and family traffic. So trying to keep that in mind as we're citing that location. So we put 3 potential ones that do have that type of location. I'll let John, right? John, can I show you some of the signs?
Yeah, thank you, everybody. We did get the signs in and ordered. So we have examples of the welcome sign, and then it is a bilingual trail. examples of 10 different signs in both languages, so 20 signs in total. I didn't lug the full 60 pounds in, but hopefully this gives you a good enough scenario, but really looking for direction on which park, and then also considering the layout too, if the signs in the two languages should be top and bottom, side to side, front, back, consideration of that as well.
Yeah, I'm still very large proponent of Kiwanis as the path in. I mean, just kind of go straight shot playground or from the parking lot. So I'm still kind of a huge proponent of Kiwanis being a path for this. I just think it makes the most sense, but again, continued feedback on it. Was there a park that within our system that you thought might be an ideal location for this?
I think the three suggestions that Jesse brought up were good. I think Gregory would arguably get the most traffic, but at the same time, there are events, I think, of Arts in the Park coming up, how signage might influence, tents being set up. Granted, that's more of a one-off, but, our goal is really to engage as many people as possible. I don't have the elementary school statistics on hand, but if there were parks that were nearer to higher free and reduced lunch populations or higher, more diverse neighborhoods, we are growing in diversity. We're still a fairly white Caucasian community, but it is something that we would like to get it where there is the most traffic. And I think that the three suggestions that Jesse brought up, especially Kiwanis, it's in line with Kiwanis Club's mission in promoting reading and promoting youth development as well, or Gregory Parker Bain as well. So really looking for direction from you and what you really need from us moving forward. So, and if you can't pick, we'd be open to looking at how can we put multiple trails in. So,
Any other questions? Troy?
I wasn't, oh, sorry, go ahead. I wasn't at the original, so I apologize. I'm Monday quarterbacking this just a little bit, which I loathe. But are all of these going in the same location, or is the idea that, okay, they're all going to kind of go in one spot, right?
Yep.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
So I guess the only thing I would say, my 2 cents on this is I think they look better if they're already attached to an existing structure, like a fence around a tennis court or something like that, versus a pole with signs all over the place. So we kind of talked about this the last time, signitis going on in our park. So that was my only concern, but message looks right, looks good. I support.
I don't know if structures would fit any of these.
Yeah, probably not.
Any of these parks. I don't think it, I think they're gonna have to go on poles, and with that being said, I think, to me, top and bottom, is just gonna take up less space than side to side. Probably less chance of somebody running along and, at least they're only gonna hit one sign, they're not gonna hit two of them, but,
or front back if the English was oriented one direction,
I
say
think
north south.
to me, that would be ideal, cause then it just is that much less than, if you're speaking Spanish, you have to come from this way, and if you're speaking English, you have to come from this way. I'm just kidding. I'm kind of torn. I really like the Kiwanis because we talked about how that was going to flow down to the playground area. Bain has the same thing, and there is a neighborhood there as well, and there's that playground right by the Miracle Field, and so I think also there's plenty of asphalt in Bain. I mean, we could probably run a interstate through there, but I think that might be a good spot too. But I'm not going to disagree with you, Jonathan. I think Kiwanis might be.
I tend to agree with
be
you
the best
too.
fit.
I think it was just for me when I was looking at Kiwanis, that it's just kind of the entrance and the direction to the playground equipment is pretty centralized. So if we're talking about utilization of something like this and, putting up signage and, taking up a little bit of real estate with something like this, we'd like to get some use, and it kind of funnels folks down a little bit more to the playground. I love the asphalt, I love the entrance. I think that'd be a great spot. There's just a lot of ways into Bain, and I think maybe utilization would be a little bit lower, maybe more ideal.
Because the entrance is more centralized.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's how I feel too, especially the parking area or the playground area. Yeah.
And there's just, I mean, there's a lot
Yeah.
of use down there
Yeah.
with families and, about any time you drive by there, there's
Yeah. A lot of youngsters.
a lot of youngsters down there and.
Yeah, I think you have a good point thinking about Gregory too. You've got people that park on 7th and just walk into the grass,
Yep.
into the playground. You've got people that come from the center. So Kiwanis funneling everyone. I think everybody who visits would engage with it, which would be great, instead of, oh, we parked on 7th, so we never even saw the signs. I think that's a bummer.
Yeah, and I like the Kiwanis as like a, if we have a higher traffic volume where, children are stopping to do these activities on the way in, there are other branching paths for folks maybe that are a little more beaten that can get them to the playground to, I don't want to say avoid the activity, but if it's in use and they want to just get down, they have the ability to do that as well, and they don't have to kind of, wiggle through the activity area. So
The Bourne Learning Trail, an actual like trail that's mapped?
No, this
Okay,
is
it's
along existing trails or
Got it.
Those look good.
along fence lines.
They look good.
Sounds like our consensus is Kiwanis.
And I think it's just Gregory would be awesome if we still had a school there, and but it's again one of those situations where I think we don't have a school in any of these 3 optimal parks, and I think the way that we can get engagement for this particular item would be through Kiwanis. I think maximum engagement is probably going to come through Kiwanis.
And to clarify, top bottom for English Spanish, is that kind of what I heard as a preferred?
Unless they can do back to back.
I guess I don't love that depending on the language, you have to go a different direction. Like, just everybody does it the same way.
If it's top, bottom, you mean?
Yeah, it's like, oh, you're speaking Spanish, so you have to leave the playground to do it or vice versa, right? But everybody should have the same experience.
Yeah, I think maybe we can, when we fasten the poles in, maybe just look at visibility from how, because the signage is pretty thin. So when we're looking downward from the trail, if we can maybe just look to see what is ideally better for visibility down the trails. I guess I don't know how big the poles are going to be, or.
Side by side seems like it's gonna take up
Yeah, it's too much real estate, but
Yeah, up and down looks good, I think.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
nice.
that looks just fine. Yep. I think so. Appreciate you putting on the display for us.
Yeah.
And the United Way is paying for the signs, the poles, the installation, is that correct?
Yep, and then,
And will the
so
United Way be paying to replace these when they need replaced?
that's kind of how they indicated
I
it,
think
is
that's
that
what
it
we
would
talked
be
about.
through volunteer efforts there. Just to clarify, Kevin, to your point, so the Bourne Learning Trail is kind of not only a combination of the signs, but some, what I call creative painting on the walkway to create like an activity for children to engage with. So it's kind of a combination of the two right there in the
Miss
walkways.
one meeting, get left behind.
Yeah, didn't you guys agree to replace the dock too when it goes bad?
So, and I do want to note too that this is thanks to Crowing Energized and the State Health Improvement Partnership. We got grant funding through that. So we purchased the signs to get reimbursed through that this fiscal year that ends this week. So, yeah, looking to Jesse too, what other materials we might have to order to get reimbursed, whether it be, post, concrete, whatever is standard.
Okay,
Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much. This is going to be awesome.
yeah.
We didn't need a motion.
Thank you, sir.
Just wanted direction.
Got your
I think we're good.
direction? Yeah, okay.
7H. Love it when it goes to H. Discussion on Rotary Park items.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. So I had a recent meeting with a couple Rotary Club members on May 9th to go over some of their upcoming requests of things that they want to do and install in Rotary Park. Through that list, we kind of whittled down of maybe some of the top priority things that they want to get done sooner than later, and I kind of challenged them on getting some more information, some other items. So really, I just want to get some direction from Park Board on what their thoughts on Rotary installing these items in the park. So the first one I'll go into is the observation deck at the old pump station. I included a couple of their concept drawings in here. So the old pump station that BPU will be decommissioning with their new river crossing project. Rotary would like to build this observation deck structure into that existing facility, I guess let's call it. I wanted to make the park board aware. I did challenge them on this, is because I know the area's in floodway, and I know the Corps is very concerned about permanent structures within the floodway. I did say, hey, let's have a conversation with the Corps, or at least them to have a conversation with the Corps, get their buy-off on this concept and what they were thinking first, or what requirements, and if they wanted to continue to pursue that after having that discussion, we'll bring that back to the park board. So I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of kind of this is generally what they are thinking for that area. Obviously, very south end of the park by the Field of Seeds. If you can go to the next one. So the next one is the fireplace at the pavilion. I attached, the scan didn't come through all that great, but kind of a stone and mortar, hand-built fireplace with two kind of end caps on either side built into the existing pavilion. I think their intentions here was they were hoping to get a lot of use out of there. I think my only caution with use is generally fireplaces are kind of that dusk timeline, and with especially in the summertime when parks are getting the most use, that timeline's pretty close to 9:30, 10 o'clock when the parks are closing. So concern about the timeline about getting a ton of use, but definitely can see that something like that would garner some attention from visitors. The next one is grills at the pavilion. One of the questions they had was, would they be adjacent to that fireplace and kind of built into those little side pieces, or should we do kind of our standard grill away from the pavilion, not within the structure? I think my concern is having grills right within the structure, if that's going to be dangerous or if it's not going to be a big deal. I don't know. I'll leave that up to you, but that was one request that they had, was grills at the pavilion, and direction that they'd, what does the park board want to see? Would they rather see them built into that fireplace or separate outside of the pavilion, kind of to our standard? Picnic tables. I believe we've moved the old picnic tables from Kiwanis down to this location. The new picnic tables that we're working on assembling, when we have some time here, we'll go at the new, call it the new Kiwanis building. So requesting, do we want to use our 2023 capital budget to upgrade those picnic tables at that facility? Do we want to use that in a future year? That was something that they were looking at with picnic tables. Security cameras at the entry, gateway, and the pavilion. They do want a higher BPU to install the power and install those security cameras for us for those two. Another one was boulders along the entrance road, just kind of scattered along the entrance road coming in from the entrance gateway. And then finally, a beehive in the Field of Seeds. I'm not sure exactly where they were thinking within the Field of Seeds, if it was on the side or if kind of the middle, but generally somewhere within that Field of Seeds, which is again south of the parking lot area, trying to put some sort of a beehive in there. So wanted to get park board's thoughts on really all of these items and what I should pass on to Rotary, as these things are a go, these things are maybe not necessarily as drawn, or make some tweaks, or these other things are a no.
Let's start at the top. Observation deck. Anything beyond, we should see what the Army Corps says first.
I think, I'm sorry.
Jonathan, go ahead if you want.
No, I mean, we attended a presentation about pretty much this specifically. The Rotary Club's intention really was more to promote birding with this observation deck. Taking an opportunity, I don't know if Jesse really mentioned, but the structure itself is seemingly pretty stable.
It's a bunker.
Yeah, a bunker. Yeah, basically just a concrete, this can work on the top of it, as long as, that checks out. So the idea behind the observation deck was to promote birding more or less in the city. So they had a very nice presentation about the observation deck at the presentation that we attended. I think it's a really cool idea. I mean, if it can work, I think it's something we pursue. But yeah, I think I'm with you on this. We just got to make sure that, it works.
Troy?
So I think it's a great concept, and it's a nice structure, but that's where my red flags come up, is it's a nice structure, and it's way into the park. It's way back in there. I don't know if any of you've been in there, but it's a long ways in there, and this is gonna be a magnet for younger individuals. And my biggest fear is we're gonna be on the hook for this, and there's gonna be vandalism, and, can we make this out of steel? And I don't wanna shoot it down. I think it's a great spot. I'm just concerned with what we're gonna have to deal with as far as vandalism. And that's my biggest fear with this. I have no fears of this structure being strong enough to hold this structure that they have. I mean, it's beefy, but that's my biggest fear is, it's gonna be a magnet for.
Yeah, and to be clear, I just wanted to provide a little bit of context to what they were promoting. I do kind of share the similar issues with Troy. It is deep in the park. Maintenance is probably going to be a pain, and if we are ever on the hook for it, it's a pretty big deal where, we're already trying to maybe remove this particular structure from the park itself. So I just want to provide context because they cordially invite us to hear them out on this one. So like I said, very interesting. But yeah, I'm in the same boat as Troy.
Great idea. We keep adding, and I don't think you've added any staff, have you? No, that's my concern.
That's coming, don't worry.
Yeah.
Kevin?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so I've been working with Rotary for quite some time. We've done other projects together. Everything that they do and bring forward is fantastic. It's amazing work and all of that. My mind has shifted over the past couple of years to thinking about, okay, yes, I support other groups coming in and building structures or being partners in creating infrastructure within our parks, but I feel like I'm getting to a place of where I really want those partners to provide a sense of accountability to those structures beyond just the city of Brainerd. And, it's great. I love it. I love what they're doing, but we've just recently completed a study where we know what it costs to own and to maintain these things. And I'm just not crazy about, as much as I love these structures, I'm not crazy about people just handing us the keys and saying, okay, great, here it is, take care of it forever. Right, without some kind of a plan. So Rotary is full of smart people, and I would just love to see them, as they bring projects to us, say, here's what it is, here's how much it's gonna cost now, and here's how Rotary is gonna help you take care of this for the next 50 years or 100 years or whatever, then count me in. But I'm just very, very skeptical, and I don't wanna be looking at projects myopically and just saying, yeah, it's great, build it, love it, and then 10 years later, needs a lot of work. So that's where I'm at.
Only thing I will add, I pulled up the GIS to find this building. When the GIS photo was taken, there are 63 feet of water between the nearest dry area and that structure. So,
Brandon, if you want to go down southwest a lot.
yeah. Farther south than you would really expect.
Yeah, right kind of west of your cursor. Yeah.
Now bring it in.
See that wet spot? That's kind of what we're
Then
talking
go
about,
to the
actually.
left of that, just a little, you're gonna be close.
Yep, zoom
Now
in a
bring
little
it
bit.
down.
It's a little bit north, actually. It's really in that
Right above the
floodplain.
4, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think it's kind of in that little north of that, your cursor, but yeah, right in that zoom in.
Down, along the river, keep coming,
There it is, sitting in the water. That's the one, that's the same picture.
right there.
So
That's it.
Rich.
I echo every. Yeah. Bridges are notoriously cheap, Kevin. Yeah, great idea. I echo everything everyone said. It's a fabulous idea. I think this one has a number of challenges. If we can work through them and find a way to maintain it, that's great.
You know what, if they can build, because they also talked about building a bridge across to the college,
Oh, the island, right? Weren't they talking about
all the
building
way,
the island?
all the way, right? And if they want to make that a stop-off point for the bridge,
There's got to be a discount on 2 pedestrian bridges
Yeah.
if we buy 2 at a time, right?
Does Costco sell pedestrian bridges?
I think it was in that area, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
That they had talked about doing that. Maybe it was a little further south. I don't know.
For the island,
Was
The
it to
island.
the island?
the island.
An Isle Royale situation.
I personally love the structure. I love the idea. I think it's great. That bunker it'll be there longer than their structure probably, but that's my biggest concern is how are we gonna maintain it?
All right. Fireplace at the pavilion.
I'll start, exact same thing I just said on the last thing.
Say the same thing.
Otherwise, I support it. There's
It's beautiful.
a lot of state parks that have fireplaces like this in them. I think it's super cool. Do they get used? Even if they only get used once in a while, it's still a really cool thing, so.
There's one up on Gull Lake.
Duluth. Someone do-
There's one up on Gull Lake on the Gull Lake Dam. By the playground up there. Quite nice.
All right. Grills at the pavilion. Either attached to this fireplace or.
Showing right there. I can see a pig being rotated in there.
Jesse
So
told me
I'm not
those
sure
were
if
for
those
firewood.
are
doors?
drawn
Oh, those are
as
plywood
grills
doors?
or as like wood storage for the fireplace.
Oh, maybe that's what that is. Okay.
But I think it would be up to the park board if, one, if you wanted the fireplace installed, but two, do you want the grills built into that or do you want them separate?
What I kind of have in mind, if we're putting a grill in a pavilion like this, is the one in the Kiwanis pavilion headed down the trail, because that one is like a nice long grill. I don't know if, I mean, I've seen that grill in use before compared to a few of the other grills in our park system. So, I mean, if somebody rents out a pavilion, that might actually be something that might see some use. So, I mean, I'm cool with a grill in the pavilion and probably one of the longer style, but yeah, I mean, I'm with you on the fireplace. Unfortunately, it's incredibly cool, but since we're probably not doing a fireplace, it's got to be a different style of grill. So,
Again, I think, if there's room for discussion on some acceptability to maintaining this stuff, man. Yeah, it's beautiful. Great idea.
So is this something that the park board would like to see, kind of maybe more of a formal memorandum of understanding or an agreement that you can install, but the maintenance belongs to Rotary? The other concern I have is vandalism. That one will be a tough one for us to be able to get off stone and mortar.
And I think that's part of the maintenance, though. I really do. I really struggle with you don't build anything because you're worried it's going to get damaged. That's a hard thing for me. I think you try to see the best in people and assume that, but have a plan for if it happens, how it's going to get handled. And again, I think that's kind of on the Rotary. I don't want it to turn into
Perfect.
here it is. You guys take care of it, and then we have to acid wash it every 2 months. So cameras, key part, right? It's
Yep.
coming up.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the plan.
And did I get any clarification on grills? Does the park board want them built in or?
Long next to it, right?
Yeah.
Easier. They are definitely going to be easier to maintain and replace down the road if we just pop them out, pop a new one in versus built into the mortar
yeah,
fireplace.
that's
So separate, kind of outside the pavilion, kind of our standard park grill. Okay.
Picnic tables. So we have wooden ones there, Jesse was saying, but then we want to upgrade to the Enameled steel?
So we do have money in the 2023 capital budget to continue to do grills and picnic tables and replace the old wooden ones with the new standard of the vinyl coated. So would the park board want to use our 2023 capital dollars for that, for this park specifically on those picnic benches? Or identify a future year if we want to use this year's dollars somewhere else?
Kevin?
Thank you. I just feel like I don't know because I still have not got our head wrapped. I just feel like we don't have our head wrapped around our money and what we should do with it, even in the next coming year, until we kind of get a little better grasp of all of this stuff. So I feel like there's probably something that needs more than this and these nice picnic tables here, but I don't know what it is. So,
But the ones that were brought, there's tables there right now, right?
Correct.
And are
I
they-
believe those are the ones
tables,
from
Are they
Kiwanis.
complaining about those?
Nope, just wanting to see them, get upgraded to that new standard of the nice vinyl tables at some point.
I agree with Kevin that I don't see it as a huge necessity for this year, but
this might be the right place. I just don't feel like I know until we kind of look at do our assessment of high need, medium need, low need.
if I may,
Yeah, Troy.
in the same breath, I also would like to award the Rotary because they do so much.
Investing
They do so much investing, and if there's dollars there for this year to make that happen, I would also support doing that. So I could go either way. I mean, they've done a lot to, one, to build that pavilion and to build the entrance, the gateway, and so, I mean, if there's money there, I wouldn't be against it either for upgrading this year.
Especially a grill. I think those are not terribly expensive, and there's
500,
no-
weren't they? Weren't they $500 for the regular ones? 580?
I think so. I can't say for sure though.
But like, there's no grill there, so that's like an added amenity that seems, compared to the tables, like there are tables.
Are we thinking two? One on each side or just one?
Grills?
Yep.
I think we're talking one of the longer, skinnier ones on one side is.
Should be more than.
Yeah, I like the one at the Kiwanis Pavilion headed down the trail. Just headed. I like I said, one of the only grills in the city I've seen use out of. So or consistent
There's
use.
one in Lum Park like that also.
Yeah. Yep. I believe so. But yeah, I think that was kind of the style I was thinking of.
I think there were 7 grills on my list, so that's probably one of them. You're right.
All right. Security cameras at the gateway and then the pavilion.
I think for me, it's kind of the same thing as before. We just need to make sure. I mean, security cameras are going to age. We're going to need to replace them at some point. What is the maintenance plan? And how do we make sure they stay intact and don't become an eyesore in 25 years? And how do we keep it running? And who's paying for it? I think that's the main question with a lot of these. But
We have that already though, don't we? Don't we have money in our,
7,500 a year or something, isn't it?
It's 6,500 currently. It might have to be
6,500 a year for
adjusted, but
cameras.
generally not only to
One
install
new
them, but
camera each
in the
year, and then I
future
think
to
a replacement.
start to replace
I
them over
think we do
time.
have that in our
yeah, see,
planning.
certain questions already. That.
But it's one.
Yeah.
I think per park, and this is asking for 2, which the distance between the gateway and the pavilion, and then now if they're to add another building down at the bunker, I think that would be a place that we would need it as well, just because it would help.
Just put the security camera. We'll prioritize the security camera at
But
the
now we're talking,
assets.
there's $1,300 right there, right? There's $6,500 apiece.
13 grand.
So we
To
can
put 2 would
generally.
be 13 grand.
We can generally outfit a park with probably a couple, but that's also with the infrastructure. So what they proposed to us was they'll put in the power, they'll put in the cameras initially, and then that would be something that in 5-6 years, when that time comes, we would just use our $6,500 annual budget to replace them when that time comes due.
That's a good deal.
Yeah, that's a
like
heck
that
of a
one
deal.
better.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
They fit the standards.
Willing to take over all our parks? Real quickly about the security cameras. We have security cameras at Gregory, and Gregory is one of our most vandalized parks. So, I mean, I don't know exactly what we should be talking about with the security, whether it should be live feed, have the ability to record, not record, but maybe that's another conversation. But if we're gonna put them in, we wanna make sure they're.
Just ring doorbells.
Catch.
For the entire city, so if somebody sees some vandals, we can, you know,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a neighborhood watch, but with
Yeah.
ring cameras, yeah.
I think it's communication with law enforcement. and
We would have them outfitted to live feed to PD.
Live feed,
Fantastic.
yes.
Very good. Yeah, so I think as long as they meet the design standards for our parks and security cameras, I think I'm totally cool with them buying security cameras.
Boulders along the entrance road.
Take some of the parking logs.
Love it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I do love the boulders though. Nice guide in, and like I said, when you're kind of moseying in, it is a little like, again, I mean, when I was cataloging the park, the buildings to the left, you know, it kind of naturally just guides you in better, especially if you haven't been down there before or know that it's a park. It looks like a more developed pathway in, so I think it's a great idea.
The best part about boulders is they say you're not supposed to drive down in there. Even if you can fit, you're not supposed to go there. It's a visual thing. It says, hey, knock it off.
And they shouldn't float away
Yeah.
when it floods.
Jesse, did they want us to install them, or did they just want our permission to put them in?
Permission.
Love it. Zero maintenance.
maintenance.
Yeah.
Pressure wash the mold off every 15 years.
Beehive in the field of seeds.
Need way more information. I have like 1,000 questions on that.
Isn't that one of those, it's all pre-made, right?
I'm not sure. My assumption is kind of the box.
They showed us
type.
pictures of them when
Yeah,
we went
I-
to the,
Yeah, I
to
felt
me,
like
it's a,
it was
to
a,
me, it would be, do it. Just because it's just, I mean, it's
it's the right,
we have to
it's
keep
the
care of
right
it?
place for it.
not really.
No? You don't have to keep
Not
care of
really.
them?
It's
Not
kind of
of
along the
these
same.
types of, as long as it's, yeah, not one that needs to be kept well.
Yeah, I don't think it's
suppose,
gonna
but-
add a ton of work to your
Just a
maintenance.
habitat thing.
Yes.
I think it's a perfect place to have something like
Yeah.
that, yep, in there, and I'm all for more
And I
bees.
think there's, if I remember right, there's an entity that makes them and donates them.
Yeah, I think along with,
So,
bat houses and bird houses,
Yep.
they mentioned a
Yep.
lot of those things for the park's future, so. But yeah, I think promoting wildlife and in an area where they're trying to bank seeds and have excellent pollination, absolutely perfect. So yeah, if they're providing the beehives and it's all above board, I think I'm for it as well, so.
it's a wooden structure, but when it starts to fail, somebody can easily say, do we wanna fix this or repair this
Or
or
not right in June.
not?
Yeah, you two are comfortable with it.
I-
Cool.
I thought it was, I
Yeah,
thought it was nice.
great,
Yeah.
Excellent presentation on the concepts they had for the future of the park, so.
All right, so we have a handful of things we're broadly okay with, and then a handful that we would like some more info on. You feel like you have good direction on all 7, Jesse?
Yep. So summarizing, fireplace with just the understanding that Rotary would maintain it in its perpetuity of its life. Grills are separate from the pavilion and fireplace, kind of one similar to Kiwanis, that longer style. Picnic tables we possibly could use out of the 2023 budget. Maybe we have another discussion about that one. Cameras are okay, boulders okay, beehives okay. And then again, I'll be discussing the observation deck at a future time. Should we kind of get some more input from the Corps?
I think the only thing, when we're talking about maintenance in perpetuity, to Kevin's point, vandalism needs to be maintained, so we're considering vandalism as part of the maintenance. Because, I mean, again, there is a memorial park, or a memorial bench down there that does have a significant amount of vandalism that hasn't been cleaned up, so, again, we want to make sure that responsibility is really well laid out so that we can enjoy the amenities.
Were you saying the opposite of that?
No, I was saying that vandalism should be included in part of long-term ownership.
Okay.
All right, we will open the public forum at 6:04 PM. No one online either. Okay, we'll close the public forum at 6:04 PM. Staff reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll try and run through this since we're running on 2 hours here. So softball, Katie mentioned that the strike mats have helped a lot with the arguing, so glad we've been able to implement those well. The new trees, actually trees across all the parks have gotten a lot of great comments. Even the trimming and the trees in between have gotten good comments. Still a little bit of issue with the lights, but generally a little bit better with the foul ball concerns. Still having a little bit of issues with the lights. So we replaced all the light heads and all that, but we have not got the last of the parts for the breaker box. We're waiting on one part here, so I've asked to see if they can get an update from Holden on where they're at with that. So it's generally, I would say every night or every other night, we are losing some lights at some point, working with our staff to try and troubleshoot them on the fly and get them back up and running for the games. But that is something that we're still contending with, is that those lights are tripping out still. So hopeful that the new breaker box will alleviate some of those problems and keep it consistently on throughout, and kind of move this down the road. But something that they've run into so far this spring. Yes, sir.
President? So is that something that company, what's the name of that company?
Holden?
Okay, so it's not the company that came here and gave us a quote. Yeah, they're not having anything to do with this?
Correct.
Did
No.
we do the upgrades?
So
We're gonna do some upgrades this year?
yes, so we budgeted $50,000 this year to replace the ballast, the capacitors, and the light bulbs, and we've done that. And then the rest of that budget was to be, basically replace the old bus boxes with a up-to-date breaker box, because we were concerned about the heating,
you're talking about,
and
still
that's what
needs
we're
to be
still running into, is the overheating and those old buses popping out. So we're trying to address that, but we're still waiting for materials to come in. So hopefully soon. They indicated late June was when those would be available. So hopefully soon we'll be able to get them on our hands and get that installed, and hopefully address that throughout the rest of the summer. Pickleball, Katie mentioned the number of teams. Again, very popular. What we're running into now is that there's a pretty good split of skill. So something that, should we want something maybe in a fall league, maybe there's an upper and a lower to kind of separate some of the skill levels out. Fishing clinic had 40 attendees for the kids, over 100 people involved, but did get pretty good weather. So I think she felt like maybe we didn't get as much attendance because of that weather, and everybody was enjoying the weather elsewhere. Concessions, we're helping out, or we're doing pretty good. Now we got the epoxy flooring, we got everything moved back into Moore Park, so that's back up and running. Concessions at the tournaments have been going well. We're helping out with that as much as we can. Even our maintenance has been helping out quite a bit there. And then again, the necessary price increases and decreased inventory in the selection have been proving efficient. So hopefully that by the time we get to the end of the year, we're looking at some pretty good numbers overall for concessions. She mentioned in here Emily, who's really helped us out in a pinch between admin specialists. She's really helped kind of pick up the extra slack with helping organize our recreation programs and field usage and reservations. Between her and Tony, that have also helped out with our reservation system with our pavilions and campgrounds. Obviously, we get dozens of calls daily on all of those different rentals. So having them kind of help pick up that slack has been great. So with that, I would like to introduce you to our new admin that started Monday, Brittany Tollefson. She is our new admin specialist for the Public Works Department. So this is her first meeting today.
Welcome.
I didn't have time today to prep her for the meeting today, so I feel bad.
Does she know about the cookies?
Oh no, I did not tell her about the
Okay,
cookies.
you'll
I
get
apologize. We'll have to pass that along. So.
Correct. It's not for this meeting, though. It's at Christmas time.
6 months.
Between you and Jonathan, who's the new park board member.
So really excited that she's on board, and I'm sure it's going to be a whirlwind, that being her second day, but continue to work with her on getting up to speed on a lot of the things, and especially during the busy season, this is a great time to kind of learn as you get thrown to the fire. So with that, I have the maintenance report. I'm not going to go through all of that. Obviously, we're very, very busy. It's really good that we were able to get the temporary help this year, as we had troubles last year, considering we have a brand new park and we're trying to work on maintenance there too, and all the different things that have gone on so far this year. And with the move, which is they're working through their new space and trying to get it to work for them from a maintenance perspective, and being able to use that new space. So a lot of things going on. You'll notice in here the handful of different vandalism issues, and obviously those continue to go on between Lum Park, Gregory, other places and stuff like that. So it is something that we're always trying to continue to fight, but we're working on it. From a project standpoint, we talked about the concepts with ARPA. Kiwanis is just about wrapped up. I have to follow up if the interior painting was completed. I think that was the last that they were working on for that. The Lum Park Road project, we're wrapping up plans now on state aid review. Ideally, we're hoping to scope that for a kind of a fall project. Ideally, that's kind of where we're going to try and push a contractors. Hey, after Labor Day would be great, when the park slows down quite a bit and there's not as much traffic. So those are generally where those are at. And then I do have some unfortunate news to close out my report, is the 2 grants that we applied for. So the Laura Jane Musser Environmental Initiative for the Trail and JCs was denied funding. And then I did get notification today that we did not get the DNR grant for the additional 300 at Lone Park for the beach and campground. So we still do have the 300 that we were allocated for ARPA between the 2 projects, but we did not get the additional grant funding for those 2. So sorry to end it on a disappointing note, but
Half is better than none, right? I just had one question. The top of that list was,
A Tim Boder moment, don't go there. Don't do it. Don't do it.
no, but then there's another one.
Oh, not that one. It was the other page I was looking at.
The, yeah, that one. And then, I'm just wondering if anyone has seen Kevin stealing garbage receptacles, so we can get some of those news.
Don't the new ones look nice though at LPW though?
They
Don't
look
the, doesn't that just class up the park?
They do look nice.
I do apologize. I did miss one piece, the work at Gregory and Kiwanis with the ADA stuff. Generally pretty much wrapped up with all of the work, grading, cleaned it up, put the new boulders in at Gregory to try and curb some of the access issues we're having there. Hopefully
Hasn't been one since.
hopefully really hoping. Hydro seeding, we do have a hydro seeder on the way. I'm not sure if it's been shipped or if it's going to be shipped, but it is coming soon. Our intention is to use that hydro seeder, our new hydro seeder.
Is it the same person that did third? The same hydro seeder that did
No,
third?
this is going to be our equipment. So we are going to use the hydro seeder.
Okay, just making sure.
So we'll try and source out whatever seed mix that one of the landscaping companies. But once we get that, we want to hydro seed those areas. The concern there was, yes, we could probably just do grass seeding and tilling, but the issue is then you have to water on a regular basis, and that would be pretty, for the size of those areas, it's going to be difficult. So hydro seeding was kind of the one we were thinking that would be the most advantageous for those areas to get good establishment. So that is coming up. We're going to wait till Arts in the Park is done for sure before we do Gregory, because we know that they're going to use that as an access. But once we get that hydro seeder, and we want to get those done. Thank you.
Oh, yep. It's a very long list. Any board member reports?
Nothing to report, Mr. Chair.
Troy?
No.
I have 5 or 6, just kidding. Nothing to report.
My report, I had a work trip come up, so I won't be at the next meeting.
be?
Correct.
Oh, who's chair? Who's vice?
Kara, isn't it?
Karen, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good.
Chair, yeah.
Does not affect me.
Cool.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Sounds great. Anyone want a second?
Second the motion to adjourn.
Adjourning to a special meeting or just to a regular meeting?
Oh, I think we're on a regular meeting, aren't we?
No, we have July 11th.
yeah.
Special meeting.
Yeah,
One more.
one more. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Hopefully one more. I hope we can wrap that up in that one and not have one in August.
Yeah, and thank you for finishing up the document.
Yes.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
picked a lot of Kevin's brain to get numbers.
Oh,
for-
sure. Yeah, I was gonna
Made
say.
it Gregory. I'm like, Kevin, how much is that? How much is that?
Yes.
Very good. Cool. All in favor of the motion to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.
It was so nice of you to stay.